So we're here. Sarah, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We've got a great workshop slash webinar planned for today. So I'm going to share screen and get started. We've titled it Social Like a Boss after I did Selling Like a Boss. So this is going to be basically talking about how to build your practice, largely through social media. Not everyone needs big fancy marketing, Sarah. Not everyone. I mean, now you've got this gorgeous website that we'll look at a little bit today. But predominantly you've built your practice through a social media following, and that's wonderful because you're seeing a lot of patients and prospects that are as close to referrals as you possibly can get. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're known for.
So, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm so excited to go over all of this with you. I think you're going to get tons of useful information for social media because, quite honestly, my own personal practice was built, I would say, probably 90% through social media. Back in the day when I started 8 years ago in aesthetics, and the practice that I worked at, we were able to use word of mouth, and we did pretty much all of that with no marketing. But nowadays, social media plays such an important role in getting your skill out there, getting patients to learn who you are, what you provide. So I think that's huge. I am co-founder of Forte Faces in Conshohocken. We just hit our probably 3 year anniversary. It's probably about almost 3.5 years since we opened. I've been in the aesthetic world for 8 years. Prior to that, I was in cardiac critical care. So I worked at the bedside for about 10 years. And then I went into a director role in the hospital for another 4 years. So 14 years in the hospital, and I've been in aesthetics for about 8 years. Just graduated with my master's,
Yeah.
so we're going to be expanding services at Forte once I pass my boards, and I'm really excited to go through all this with everybody.
Well, that's great. And if anyone's looking to connect with you, tell us a little bit about your Patreon.
So I have a Patreon. This is a learning platform, if you're not familiar, that I offer injectable educations. We go over techniques. It's videos of me actually injecting while I educate you. I go over dosing, protocols, consents, rheology, the business side of things. Um, and I kind of made this because when I first started in aesthetics, it was so hard to find anybody to kind of mentor me or help me. People wanted thousands and thousands of dollars and they were gatekeeping all of their, techniques and things like that. And at the end of the day, even if you take my exact technique, you're going to apply it differently and you don't have the same injectable hands as I do. So I think it's so important, especially with places popping up left and right, that we help educate this community of injectors and providers so that we can all be as safe as possible. So I have a very affordable Patreon. It's only $30 per month. You get access to all of my videos. You also have access to my personal cell as a resource. We have a community group. All my Patreon members are in a WhatsApp group that we can use for just general questions. If you come across a rare case, if you want somebody else's opinion besides my own, because my opinion's great, but I don't know everything. So it's really nice to have that community. And we also have an engagement community on Instagram, which I'll get to later, which I think is huge for growing your social media.
Fabulous. Wonderful. And then if anyone doesn't know who I am, my name's Brad Ferris. I'm a registered nurse. A couple of other, letters behind my name, but I did my graduate degree in marketing before I did nursing. Also, like Sarah, spent time at the bedside, mostly in pediatrics, although I trained in cardiovascular surgery initially. Have grown practices that I've been directly involved in running. Presently have a business, one of them, which is called Clinic Grower. So I'm the coach inside of what's called the Aesthetic Nexus. But not only do I have a lot of bedside expertise, but also a lot of how to scale practices to not just 7, but 8 figures. You can reach me at clinicgrower.com. I'm very public on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. A little bit about what we do, just so you have some context. I mean, the Clinic Grower firm that I co-own with my partner, we do digital advertising, concierge service, a lot of website and SEO. AI is kind of all the rage right now, but I do a lot of coaching and mentorship, and I have a ton of educational resources that I give out. Sometimes people wonder why I'm giving so much out for free. But again, it's only useful in the hands of someone who's actually going to use it in an effective way. So that abundance mindset's good. The type of work that we do, look at this, Sarah. This is your new website that got launched a couple of weeks ago. But we're very forward, kind of with helping to build brands, helping to kind of put the team front and center. Obviously, you're generating a lot of your leads and patients from organic methods, which is fantastic. It keeps everything nice and cost effective. I also have a book. So if anyone's interested in getting a copy, as long as you pay for shipping at clinicroy.com/book, you can get a copy of our best-selling book. It's a pretty hefty read too. It's smaller font and about 400 pages, but has lots of resources in it. Um, so what we wanted to go over today, Sarah, right, is, I mean, the title of this theme of webinars is this boss mindset, not to be bossy, right, but to kind of be assertive, be confident, take it from an authority-based approach. We're going to talk a little bit about what to measure. I know that I get questions all the time on like what should my social media person be achieving? Like what should their performance be? And I'd love to get some feedback from you of time, like what are you looking at and versus obsessing over stuff that doesn't matter. I think everyone wants to create a profile that essentially they can monetize. And so what are those kind of like optimizations that you're making? I mean, you do a ton of before and after, a lot of inspiration-based posts. I'm going to talk a little bit about how the algorithms maybe not take everyone to class, but kind of talk a little bit about why sometimes social media is not scaling the way that you expect it to, just because of the limitations that are on the platform. We're going to talk about your expertise, how education and inspiration kind of convert directly. I think it's amazing that most patients are actually hitting you up directly on your phone through your social media. You're having that direct engagement with them. I'm going to talk a little bit about show and tell. So I've got a great structure to share with everyone and a resource if anyone is interested in kind of replicating some of where our clients are having success. And then I think we'll just answer any questions, talk about, maybe potentially, Sarah, how you're taking direct messages and getting those to book. I'm sure you get a lot of kind of like questions being asked, but obviously if you're having success getting them in the door, like what are the strategies that you're taking there? So a little bit about kind of just, I know that our audience is of practice owners, social media members, like from teams on the practices, but just to kind of do a little bit of 101 for anyone who might be brand new coming to this, like first time in the role. We love the social platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, but the trouble is that you're kind of within their community and within their control. So a lot of people, this is March 25th, 2026, they've seen TikTok change a lot, unfortunately. Maybe that's positive for some people, negative for others. Um, but if you're wanting to go viral, right? And again, not everyone's going to have that happen. We're talking a lot about the focus of this type of content today is, how are you generating shares? How are you generating tags? Are you generating comments? Are you getting direct messages? Are you getting calls? The likes are nice, but if the likes are just going around in a circle within the same community and you're not growing, your goal really should be to reach outside of that community and pull people in. So creating conversations is kind of the first focus of social media. And then creating those conversions, which we often call marketing, right, is kind of where the focus needs to be. Most of the content that you're producing should probably be focused on generating, kind of this type of outcome. There is a lot of really cool stuff happening where I have a lot of clients using TikTok, Sarah, with their short form content. They're creating maybe 5 or 6 versions of the same content. And then whatever one's kind of taking off with the most engagement in TikTok, they're moving that content over to YouTube, over to Instagram stories, over to Reels, and kind of seeing that make a huge impact. So using TikTok's algorithm kind of as a testing ground. We'll talk a lot about before and afters because I think that that's mandatory. I'd love to get your opinion in a second on that inside of practices. And we probably should talk for a second because I'm interested in this. How have you gotten the staff to buy in? Your clinical team, your front desk team? Like, is it just you doing the social media, or do you have the whole team bought into this being important overall?
No, I've really worked with my team to make sure that everybody knows that they have to be present on social media. if your books aren't growing, I'm going to make a direct correlation to your social media. I'm going to see if you're providing before and afters because when clients are looking for a provider, they want to see your work. They want to see you. They want you forward facing. They want to get to know you so that you can build that trust and rapport before they even get in your chair. So I think it's extremely important. We do have one of our providers who's an esthetician who is also working on our social media on our business page, but that's going to be in collaboration with all of my staff, all my clinicians, and even patients that come in the door that agree. So it's huge to have everybody on the same page, especially when you're trying to build a brand.
Mhm.
We want Forte Faces to be that place that you come to no matter what provider you see, you're going to get that same quality of care, you're going to get that same quality of treatment. And to make that transparent, we need everybody in the team to be doing their part of it.
So someone's going to be watching, going, "That's great. Congrats, Sarah. You got a great team. I have to hire my very first person, right? Or maybe I've got to make my next best hire." How are you evaluating a junior staff, a senior staff? Are they coming to you already with a strong social media? Are you looking for right attitude, right approach? Like where are you investing time in a newer person, newer clinician, versus looking for someone who maybe already is savvy and kind of mastered this a little bit?
I think social media is so hard. I think it's a whole second job like in turn with being a provider. So I don't solely focus on the number of followers that somebody has because I, speaking from experience, have had a very robust full career when I first started in my first couple of years with 1,000 followers, and I
Mhm.
had my books full. So as social media continues to grow and become more popular, and that's where our marketing comes from, then we grow with them. So I think that if somebody has the right attitude, if they're willing to put themselves out there on social media, if they're willing to participate in the things that we want them to do, then that's going to be enough for me. And I usually put my providers on like a 90-day period where, it's a trial period. So we're going to make sure that during that time, they're really completing the goals that we have them complete, which include social media.
Yeah. And to kind of give some helpful context too, when you made that comment, I mean, you're about 38,000 or so on Instagram right now. So I think some people think, well, I have to have 300, right? I have to have 500. It really is about the quality of the content that you're putting out and kind of the message that you're targeting towards your target audience.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, so I've got a lot of best practices. I think we talked a little bit about this overall, but consistency. Talk to me over, there's often this challenge of do I have to post consistently? Does it have to be perfect? How are you balancing quality of content over the quantity that often people say, you got to be posting 7 times a day. Everything's got to be shorts and videos. How are you balancing that?
I think I stopped obsessing over making sure that everything was perfect, that everything was edited to the perfect, aesthetically pleasing. We do the best that we can. I found, especially on TikTok, they want you to be more authentic. So
Mhm.
those videos that you don't spend 4 hours editing, that get the point across and you're natural and you're being yourself are the ones that are going to get the most engagement. So consistency is going to keep you within that algorithm. So if you take weeks off at a time, Instagram is going to think, TikTok's going to think that you're not engaging with the app anymore. At the end of the day, engaging with the app, doing the things they want you to do, which is posting, resharing stories, commenting, liking, is what's going to trigger your videos to get pushed out to the FYP page, which then are going to reach even further of an audience.
And your setup, I mean, what's your setup? Are you extravagant, pretty reasonable, and on budget? Like, how are you shooting most of your content?
I use as far as my personal videos and everything that we
Mm,
do. Oh, we do it with an iPhone. We don't do, I mean, it's nothing crazy. We use our phone. We'll edit it in, CapCut or one of those apps that are free. I'll even put it together in the free version of Video Shop. So there's all these free apps that we can use. And I don't really spend anything on my social media, to be honest.
Talk about trends. I mean, are you chasing the trends, or have you really just kind of dug down and you're building on trust at this point?
I think there's a temptation to chase all these trends. And yeah, every once in a while, I'll make this little meme in one of my apps and throw it up there just to break up the monotony of everything. And it's just good for engagement and it gets people looking at your page every once in a while. But at the end of the day, that trust that you're putting out there is what's really going to build your business and scale your business and get people actually in the door. Yes, these nice, funny little trends and reels are going to get people to look at your profile, but they're not necessarily going to convert because you're not proving anything to them. You're not proving your skill set, you're not educating them, you're not building any sort of trust.
No, no, I agree with that 100%. I put nicely here the bargain hunters. I call them the Walmart one does when I'm doing coaching and stuff. But how are you finding the best methods? Those high lifetime value patients that are coming to you similar to a referral. What's the content that's grabbing them the most?
I think it's the content number one that they can relate to. So when we do, and we'll speak about this later when we talk about our specific before and afters and how we position them, relating to that patient. This mom of three, was feeling X, Y, and Z. So these are the things that we did to kind of rejuvenate her, make her feel like herself. When you can relate to a patient through a video, through a before and after, through an experience, you will gain their trust and they will end up being a long-term patient, once you get them in the door and continue that conversation.
And if you're establishing your brand, it's day one. Any advice? I mean, I've got here, some people are going after natural results. I mean, there is a focus on full facial balancing. Where did you kind of start, and have you stuck with, your standards kind of over time?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what your brand is, what is the goal. When we first opened Forte, we were focusing heavily on, non-surgical facial rejuvenation is kind of the words that we used. We did everything very natural. We tiptoed into a little body, but we didn't want to do too many things. We kind of niched down on what we knew we were good at
Mhm.
and kind of tried to portray that in our social media. So I think it's really important to establish. I mean, are you going to be the practice that has every single laser and every single injectable and you just do 1,200 things? Or are you going to have a core set of things that you do really good? And that's what you're going to be known for. And those are the types of patients that you're going to attract.
And then salesy, right? That anti-cringe factor, as they called it, right? Um, some people feel like, oh, I have I don't feel comfortable saying sell, 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 buy, buy, buy. How are you approaching that call to action? Obviously, you're doing it to generate sales, right? What's kind of been your secret to balancing? I'm approachable, I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not just going to be like, going for the highest package I possibly can with you.
Yeah, I think to avoid sounding salesy, especially when you're on social media, I usually end a lot of my things like if it's an educational post and I have a little more that I want to say, I will say comment peptide and I will send you more information. And then I can send a little blurb of information. I can send them the booking link. I can say you can book a free consultation with me and we can discuss further. So instead of trying to immediately sell them something, I'm going to offer them more of my time to have a deeper conversation. And for the most part, I would say about 99% of our consultations convert because we're also good at giving consultations. And that's a whole nother webinar, I'm sure, about how to consult, but that's kind of where you go instead of, immediately telling them that they have to book X, Y, and Z.
But gonna give you some credit, right? I mean, to have a consultation to sale ratio that high, these patients are probably consuming a very high portion of your social media, right? They're kind of already coming pre-sold, maybe potentially pre-convinced, or at least the trust level is exceptionally high. I think that's one of the things that people don't focus as much on is again, they're thinking I have to do this and I have to get this many likes. But like I would say 97% of the people that will see your content are not engaging at all. We call them lurkers. They're just
Mhm.
they're just out there, right? So How many of them will still call, still message, still inquire on the website? It's probably to a very high degree. It's just more difficult to track overall. So talking about metrics, this is usually the boring stuff. Everyone now has heard, like for me, if I'm teaching, I'm looking for the shares, the tags, the comments, the things that I can measure. What are you measuring internally as a team and individually?
We definitely look at the profile visits, the shares, the tags, comments. I don't hyper focus on likes, honestly, because a lot of people, like you said, are seeing the content. They are scrolling it, especially your static before and afters, but they're not engaging. But they are seeing it. And you will learn that that is true when you have patients come in. I have patients come in all the time. I saw this before and after of your lips that you did. This is kind of what I'm looking for. This before and after reminded me of how I look, but they just don't engage. So people are seeing it. So the nice thing about Instagram is it does show views too, so you can see, how many views are actually there. Um, we do we do a little bit in the DMs. A lot of our stuff comes trafficked, as you know. We watch metrics from the website and from Google and from things like that.
Okay. Um, Response times. Who's responsible? Are you each managing your own profiles? Do you have everyone kind of sharing the responsibility? Because obviously, if someone's reaching out and you're with a patient or you got a busy day, like I know you had the other day when we were talking, are you just self-managing that? Have you found a good balance between response time and still caring for patients during the day?
Sometimes we can do automated responses if you have one of those things where it says comment X, Y, and Z, and then it will trigger an algorithm. But we do have a social media manager who manages the DMs for the business page. Our personal pages, we manage them ourselves, which can sometimes it can get to be a lot. So we do prefer that our patients reach out via text to the office if there's anything extremely important. But converting in those DMs is really important because people in this day and age are lazy. They do not want to get out of the app to text another number or to have a phone conversation. So I think it's really important to make sure that you do have that quick response time or within reason response time to your DMs in order to convert.
Okay. Let's talk about this profile that you've got, right? It's an awesome business asset. Obviously, it's converting. Um, Tell us a little bit about your profile and the choices that you've made on constructing it, like whether again on TikTok or Instagram.
I think the biggest thing that I tell people, number one, with your profile, have your name in there, have your credentials up top, and put your location. People need to know when they're seeing your profile where they can find you. That is the number one thing I see. I see beautiful work on Instagram and I click on the page or the person's profile and I don't know if they're in California or New York or Florida and people are going to get off that profile so fast if they can't tell where you are, especially if they're looking for a specific service in their area. So I think setting up that bio and giving a short description of what you do, having all your links there and available is huge. Whether you use Linktree, whether you use one of those, but making it so easy for a patient to find you and book with you because, like I said, it's 2026. We're lazy. We want everything within 2 clicks and we want to be there. So I think that's really important. And then deciding what you're going to focus on. My focus lately on my Instagram especially has been a lot of education.
Hmm.
And I go through whether that's educating through a before and after, through a video, through a green screen and I'm on top of it, through static little pictures. Education is huge for me, and that also converts to the provider room, patient appointment. I do tons of education there. So I'm trying to really put that out there to kind of grab a hold of people and say, and have them look at something and say, oh my gosh, I never knew this, or oh my gosh, I didn't know we could do this treatment, or this is why we do this treatment. I think in a world where where so much information is given to us all the time on all these platforms, you don't know who to believe. giving that core education is going to really set you apart from the competition.
Gonna put you on the spot. Do you want to share screen, go to one of them, one of the profiles, and talk maybe through a couple of the posts and maybe why you made a decision to make it? Maybe be honest with us if some of them missed, right? Sometimes some of them hit, so I'll kind of stop. But I think it'd be interesting for anyone watching even the recording to understand a little bit around like they're not all going to be perfect. They're all not all going to be pretty. Sometimes you put content out there and you think to yourself, hey, I'm really confident that this is going to result in a win. And then sometimes, you're looking and scratching your head and going, why did that miss? Can you see I know
Yeah, hold on one
changed.
sec. Let me just get myself organized here.
It
Sorry.
changed the green share button now to like white, like everything else. So
Okay. Let me share my screen here. All right. Can you see?
I think it's loading up. So we're getting there. Yeah, we can. There we go. Perfect. So we're on Instagram.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram. So looking at the top of my profile, this is one of the biggest things that I say, your name, your credentials, and then your location immediately so people can find it. I also have some other things that I do here, and I have my link tree.
So
Then,
there to interrupt, sorry, like you've got both the city and you have the local kind of neighborhood, correct?
mhm.
Okay.
um, I guess I should put Pennsylvania now that I'm instructing all you guys to do this. That's a nice little audit. Um, and then I think highlights are also nice too, because this gets everybody able to see my before and after of my lips, my skin, my Moxie treatment, surgeries, Morpheus 8. So that's a nice little thing too. And I do a lot of times if patients are like, well, what's going to happen when I get threads? I'm like, hey, go on my Instagram. I have this whole highlight that takes you through everything, the whole process. So I think that's good. Um, some ones that get a lot of engagement but don't do lots of conversion. Here's your little your reel. It got 773 likes, 84 comments. That's one that will I think it has like 32,000 views right now or something, but that's not going to do a lot of converting. These chin and lip filler, these jawline sharpening, these that are showing your work. Another one, I did a Botox nose job. I showed proof that it worked. So it's a video of me before and after. People talk about Botox nose job all the time on the internet, but nobody really shows the before and after. So I treated one side of my face and not the other to kind of show that. So I think that was huge. Another one that I really liked was this one about why your acne scars aren't improving. So I do a whole video about what's going on, how to subsize, why you're getting all these treatments and your acne scars aren't improving. So that's a really good educational one that's just going to get people's attention because everybody that has had acne has some sort of scarring usually. So those types of things that are going to just grab people's attention. Here's another dumb one that has 1 million views, but it's just a little meme, but we throw it in there because it gets people looking at your profile and then they come and they say, oh, well, oh, how am I going to make my Botox last longer?
Mhm.
What are these facts that I should know about Botox that I don't know? So, um, some of them are going to flop. There's some that I post and I'm like, oh, this is great. It did amazing on TikTok. And I put it on Instagram and it doesn't get hardly any engagement. It doesn't get that many likes, but um, you just keep posting because it's also, Instagram also pushes out a lot later, I found. So, I'll post a video, doesn't do too great. I'll continue to stay consistent and post. And now I came back. This one here, this aesthetic treatments by age, is now blowing up. And that was
Hmm.
posted probably a week and a half ago. And now it's getting sent and it's getting saved and it's getting reposted. So it will loop back around.
Right. Who do you, if you don't mind me, I often see you showing love, right, to other injectors and some of my clients, all whether you guys realize that your clients or not. Do you have anyone that you've looked to for inspiration? I mean, do you have a routine of looking through a set number of profiles? Like, how are you kind of staying up, or are you just doing more of what's working for you generating patients right now?
I think it's a little combination of both. I tell people when I'm educating them about social media, take 20 minutes of your day, whenever that is, and look up two or three hashtags and see what's being posted about that, or look up your five favorite injectors or accounts that you follow and see what they're doing. Because you don't want to spend too much time over consuming and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So I'll do that sometimes, or I'll just hit the Reels little button and I'll look through a couple Reels, save a couple ideas, and then come back to it to create content. Um, and the other thing that I love to do, and I have this with my Patreon members, is we have a DM group on Instagram. So it's a community where we all support each other. So if we have a new post, we'll send it to the group, we'll get engagement. That kind of starts everything off. The sooner that you start to get engagement on that post when it's first posted, the more traction it's going to grab. So, having people comment, having people like it, things like that is huge. So during those 20 minutes when you're looking through your hashtags and whatever, always engage with other accounts, especially accounts that have lots of followers, because the lots of followers are getting lots of views and people tend to look at comments. And when they look at comments and they see a comment that you made that either sounds um, educational, inspirational, it appeals to them, they're going to click on your profile and then they're going to visit your profile. So engagement is huge on your end too, as you know, being on social media in general.
So let's stay here for a sec because I got a couple questions now.
Yeah.
My marketing brain's going. Um, a couple things here that I love that I'm seeing on the page are what I call big sexy hooks, right? So you've got 20 uncomfy truths you need to hear. You've got aesthetic treatments by age. How are you determining? Is it just natural fit and feel? Are you using AI to kind of give you 5 to 15 different variations? Like, obviously you're having success. I think most of it's just around your brand and like your style and the way that you're treating patients. But like, are you sitting around really debating what your hooks and kind of like this text needs to be, or is it just coming to you naturally?
I think a little combination of both. I think AI is amazing to use. Chat's amazing to use for captions and things like that because it's going to know what to pull. But I've started, and you can see where I start doing this. It's probably right around here. I try to put little titles on there that will grab your attention. Age is just a number. You click on it. What does that mean? Your prime years are way beyond 25.
Yeah.
A lip filler behind the scenes and put a cover photo on so people know what they're looking at and it kind of grabs their attention. Why you should dissolve your lip filler. How to
If
make
I can, if
Botox
I can
last
jump in,
longer.
please always put a cover photo on your content, so that Instagram's not picking the most awkward random start of the video that you don't want it to be picking. I would say that that's probably something for anyone watching this. So basically, what we're talking about is just making sure that the first frame that's going to go up is the frame that you want here displayed. If you're not controlling that, then Instagram's going to grab it, or any of the platforms are going to grab it themselves, and sometimes it can be a weird blurred transition. It can be a like a little side kind of like crooked smile or closed eye. So you've done a good job here of making sure that like most of these are videos, but they're good, clean cover photos for like each piece of the content.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go back here if I can share screen again, if you don't mind, and let's talk a little bit about in detail what we've kind of been summarizing in conversation. I'll just wait for you to finish.
Stop share. There
Yeah.
you go.
So you talked a lot about
Excuse me.
education. I call these kind of like this the four to five major pillars that I'll recommend to practices to do. Um, how much are you focusing on transformations, and where do you think that fits best in we call it an ideal customer profile, but I mean, you are big on transformations, but what have you found, like what type of patient is that attracting for you?
I think transformations are huge because people want to see your before and afters. I've been struggling with or I have struggled with some of my providers in the past that they're just jumping on the trends, which is great, and they get traffic. But then somebody looks at their profile and they're like, I don't know how her lips turn out. I don't know if she knows how to do Botox. So I think they're huge, but make them fun. So make a green screen. Put your before and after, have you be that'll be the green screen in the background and talk through it so that they see your face while you're talking through it. You explain exactly what you're doing. I think that really grabs attention. Sometimes I'll do a green screen and I'll sit myself in front of the after and I'll have the before over here for a couple minutes and then I'll move to reveal it so it keeps that person engaged. Um, like I said, transformations aren't always going to get the most likes because people just scroll and see them, but they will remember them. So I think it's so important to have those scattered throughout your profile.
Yep. And then you talked a lot about education. I'm just curious, from a clinical side, expectation setting, how impactful has that been? I mean, is it making a difference? Is it helping? I mean, you've got a really high consultation to sale ratio, so I'm assuming the answer is yes. But take me a little bit through, you're doing a lot of education posts. Is it helping, hurting? Is it essential?
I think it probably helps, honestly, because then the patients come in with a little background education and you can kind of refine that when you're in the consultation with them. And they kind of understand, if you're going through an educational post, after 3 sessions of microneedling, look where my patient got to. Or after a year of under eye filler and PRP, this is where my patient is at. So you can put that timeline on that. And so that they have a little more realistic expectation when they come to the treatment room and realize that this isn't just going to happen overnight.
And then have you done, I mean, we do a lot of paid advertising behind what we call social proof, right? So using UGC, for anyone that doesn't know, stands for user generated content, but kind of like that come with me to get Botox. They're giving a tour through the practice of what their experience, kind of like in a POV, point of view type of perspective. I mean, have you guys had success with it? Is that something that you've looked at, stayed away from?
We have done that in the past. We didn't have tons of success with that.
Hmm.
I think that that needs to be a really focused adventure, if you would call it. There has to be specific contracts, there has to be specific expectations. I think it has to be very well outlined, which unfortunately I don't think our publicists at the time provided that to these
Hmm.
influencers. So I think it's definitely something that could work, and I've seen it work at other practices. We just personally didn't have a great experience with it, but I think it definitely can help, with that foot traffic, that word of mouth.
Yeah, where we support clients, just so if anyone's interested in how that's worked, we originally, same thing, very similar, started with the influencers, thinking that their following would attract all of the patients, and actually it was the opposite. We looked a lot more towards creators, knew how to hold the camera, work the script, did really good voiceovers, and we actually, if anyone's ever interested, I have great contracts and a great scope of work document. I have a whole standard operating procedure on how to potentially find someone locally, whether that's on what is it, Popular Pays, and then there's another one, I can't think of the name right now. But often, if you have a patient who just really, really loves being a patient and they are really effective at capturing their content in a first person, that's pretty much a great starting point of where you need to go. I think that sometimes people think they have to pay these or give gifts or figure out some financial agreement with an influencer. And that can be effective, but most of the best ones have actually just been from moms that they drop the kids off at school and they just really love doing this content for other brands, and they just happen to kind of roll into your brand at the same time. Um, what are we getting into time? So, I mean, I asked AI to kind of tell me Sarah's secrets from everything that it had provided. I mean, is there anything here that we haven't talked about or that you want to focus on? I know you had said there was a couple things you wanted to take the audience through as well.
I think we got to a lot of it. I think one of the biggest things that I try to work with my girls too, just to make the content, at the end of the day, the content needs to be appealing. So as much as we say, okay, just do it on your phone, you don't need to put too much effort into it, you do to a degree. So I think one of the big things, and it sounds so simple, but like lighting is huge. Angles, making sure your before and afters are captured at the same angle. Make sure that the result looks good. Make sure the background is not like, a
Messy.
messy and has supplies everywhere. Get rid of that. So those things, the clean, well put together aesthetic is definitely going to make a huge difference. So I think that's huge. And then, I mean, I think we pretty much covered everything. I agree with you. I think patient testimonials are the best because you're getting a real honest opinion of the services that somebody receives. So that's where we're headed for our social media. We're going to start doing patient testimonials, especially for our wellness program, our
Mhm.
microdosing, our peptides, things like that, that patients, it changes the way not only they look, but they feel. So I think that's going to be huge because people will feel a little more connected to that versus an influencer that they see, oh, they took this brand deal so that they could get a free hydrofacial. And they've only posted about them one time ever. I
Mhm.
think the personalized patient testimonial is huge.
I mean, my background, I want to get back to the lighting. Like, I worked in clinical research for a long period of time. So, like a clinical research before and after photo obviously is totally different than what you're doing in terms of social media. But one of my clients in Fort Lauderdale, Shanita, that's got Galore, I love their setup, right? They have a fixed ring light on a stand, they have a fixed camera, there's a stool that sits in a fixed position. She's got a tape on the floor, right? So left side, center, and right side. Every patient's having, to the best degree that they can, like very consistent photography, and that's obviously for the chart, right? That's for their clinical documentation, but they're obviously capturing that really, really well and using that directly in how they're presenting all three photos, sometimes with narration, sometimes all just long text. I don't think people need to have a huge budget for it, but committing to it is massively important. Do you do before and afters on every patient? Is it part of your standard intake, whether they're giving permission for social media or not?
100%. And in this industry, it should be a standard for every single practitioner and provider. Before and afters are not only important to protect you as a provider when somebody comes back and says that the treatment doesn't work or they had a bad outcome, but then that gives you the ability too, that if you have a great result, then you can follow up. We always have our patients sign a photo release, and that's just to get the photos to put into their chart. And then if we want to use it for social media, that's when we will go back. So a lot of times what I'll do is I will crop my patients before and afters together. I'll send them to them. I'll say, oh my gosh, this before and after is absolutely amazing. You look incredible. How
Hmm.
would you feel if I put this on social media? Sometimes they're like, go ahead. Sometimes they're like, can you block out my eyes? Other times they're like, absolutely not. I don't want to be on social media. And that's totally fine. But you have all those resources there. And if you present it to the patient in a positive light, like you look so refreshed, you look so good. A lot of times they're pretty agreeable.
Are you finding that a great before and after experience posted on social media is also inspiring some then future patients to one, it's normalizing it, two, it's kind of putting it as like, I have a great result, do you want to show my great result? Like, are you still feeling like you're pulling that request, or do you have some patients pushing you to kind of put their stuff up on social media?
No, I think it's definitely gotten easier. And the more that they see before and afters on your profile, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I want to be one of those
Mhm.
before and afters. I want to be featured on her page because look at all these kind, nice comments that this post is getting. And so I think it really opens the door. The more that you can get your patients to agree to get some of those before and afters up, I think it truly makes a difference.
Well, let's do a little bit of workshop if that's okay with you for the
Mhm.
last kind of 10, 12 minutes. I've got a great resource. I'm going to kind of just open this presentation a little bit. I put it in the chat. So if you're watching on live or the recording and you'd like the resource after, feel free to ask for it. Um, I thought I would take them first through, Sarah, kind of how I generally coach clients on before and afters. And then I thought we'd slide this over and kind of maybe have you talk through, like how are you positioning it? What approach are you taking? Do you have a structure, a style? So this anyone that doesn't know, Bianca Moon is a client, a clinic grower. She's in the Orlando area. She was gracious enough to kind of let me use this as an example. But I'm almost always sharing with practices kind of a five structure approach. So big sexy hook. I mean, as a marketer, I just can't avoid not trying to get a little bit of sensation in there. So I'm almost going to always try to get a scroll stopper, Sarah. So someone's scrolling through social media. My before and afters are always going to be narrated because without it, I mean, I always laugh. My wife goes, her face looks shinier. And as a dietitian, I'm like, yeah, she doesn't know aesthetics. So you want to have that video so it's far more engaging. You want the voice there so people can hear you. And some type of hook of, let me tell you about this beautiful mom of two. Here's what she came in feeling like. And, you know, at least that's translatable to someone else that's probably watching it. I'm gonna ask them to share the story, however they feel comfortable or they have consent. So what was this patient asking for? How was she feeling? Maybe potentially her age, right? Potentially her main complaint. Um, some people like doing this, but I think it's awesome, like sharing the plan plus the result, right? So in terms of like, hey, here's where we started, here's where we went, this is what we were working towards. Give some type of outcome and inspiration in terms of like, doesn't she look great? Doesn't she look wonderful? Most importantly, this is how she felt. And then this is where you're doing a little bit of a sale call to action for marketing purposes. And in this resource, I kind of give a bunch of hooks as examples. So you wouldn't read all of these on the same video, but you might say, she came in and said, I'm so tired of people asking if I'm tired, right? I hear that a lot for patients at various practices. Or, filler has evolved, right? And so have our patient goals. Then, different voiceovers, these would just be a single sentence per kind of piece of content. Same with the voiceover and the results. But walk me through, how are you've got a great before and after, you've got a great story, you've got patient consent. How are you just freewheeling it and kind of what comes naturally to you? Are you following a set structure?
No, I definitely try to follow a set structure because you definitely need that hook within the first 1 to 2 seconds. Somebody's going to keep scrolling if they're not impressed with what you have to say. So I think a hook is huge. Um, and whether that's 2 words, 3 words, a whole sentence or two, but something to grab the attention and something that's relatable too. So for your example, beautiful mom of two. If a mom of two is scrolling and hears that, she's going to stop and she's going to listen to the whole video. So I think that's huge. I go through a little bit of I don't get too technical, I don't think, on my on exactly what we did, but we say, we revolumized the cheek, did a little facial balancing, and look at her after. And then I do always put a little call to action in the end.
Mm,
Um, if you'd like to build a plan with me, send me a DM or whatever, I'll put a link or something like that. But I think those are definitely important because people will relate to that. And when you relate to something that you see, especially if you're scrolling, oh my gosh, that's the same thing that I was just complaining about. Look, we can fix it. There we go. We've got an immediate conversion, hopefully, once they come in for their consult, because of your before and after
yeah.
and your
And
story.
hopefully the algorithm is picking up some of that wording too and showing it in front of individuals that, you know, I always think like they're listening to us all the time. I'm that little guy in the tinfoil hat being like, like how did they know that I was just either thinking or talking about that? Um,
And then doing a voiceover too, the other thing, if you don't, you can put your captions on the screen, which will have the words too typed and printed there, which is good for the algorithm. And if you don't even want them to be seen and you just want your face and your voice, you can even drag them off the screen so that they're still there because everything, it's going to pick up on everything, all those keywords, whether they're typed, whether they're spoken, whether they're, in a hashtag. So that's really important.
Yep. And for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, maybe they've never tried it before. One of the resources that is on almost everyone's iPhone, I don't know about Android, but there's an app called Voice Memo. It's what I use whenever I'm narrating or wanting to capture just audio if I'm not on camera. So you pull that open, you press record. You're just trying to sound relaxed, not too rushed. A lot of editing software will take out your ums and your ahs and kind of your weird hesitation pauses and stuff like that. Um, Being on camera, you're doing your iPhone. I saw a couple, and I'm assuming that this is done on purpose, right? But in your before and afters, your video is covering your after. Was that done on purpose? Is that something that you've had success with? So your before, you're obviously describing the before, but your kind of avatar body is kind of hiding the after, and then you flip to the other side. And I've often thought that that's quite clever, right? Because as I've been watching it, I'm kind of like, get out of the way, Sarah. Like, I want to see the after that you've had there already.
Yeah, and I think that's good to do. Just don't stay there for too long because people
Yeah.
aren't going to stay too long. But I'll start and I'll say, this is one of my favorite before and after under eye transformations. And I'll do a quick little story about the patients before, and then it entices them in, and they're like, I can't wait to see the after. This is her favorite. Oh my gosh, can't wait to see. And then I'll move out of the way. We'll see the after, and then we'll kind of talk through it. So I think that's another and you just see what lands with your audience. I mean, you can try both and you can see um what performs better.
Yep. And then anyone that's interested, say they just absolutely have nowhere, they don't know where to start. On this resource, I've got a lot of 60-second scripts that I think your team can do and shoot. So I've gone through and looked at Botox, filler, facials, did take the approach clinically too. Like, some patients, Sarah, think that they're going to break out after a facial. And kind of, potentially depending on who your target audience is, what your esthetician and or your nurse is trying to bring through the door. I put a lot, again, you wouldn't put all these hooks, just so everyone knows, on one video, right? Each of them is kind of individually there to pull somebody in. I've done this for HRT successfully. I've done it for pretty much um, any service inside of a medical practice. We've got a plastic surgery set. I have shorter content, but I think for a lot of people, they just got to get out there, and I mean, ideally, they're speaking to their social media audience, Sarah, very similar to how they're speaking to their patients in the room. And I've often encouraged people too. The client is comfortable. Obviously, you're not going to have them on audio, but whether it's a DJI mic or it's a Bluetooth, like maybe even just recording yourself going through a consultation and going through an assessment. Here's what you can expect to see, show and tell when you walk into the room. You can have some of your B-roll video with a voiceover there, and not a lot of people think about that. And I think to myself, like, yeah, you have a lot of really great things to say in the room that no one ever hears ever again.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And also, um, that really helps in this. Like I said, this industry is becoming so oversaturated. So you really need something that's going to set you apart at your practice. So showing the patient exactly what's going to happen when they walk through the doors, exactly what they're going to get in that consult room, all of that type of thing is going to continue to build that trust. And the more they see you doing that and staying consistent with that, they're going to choose you at the end of the day as a provider.
Couple minutes left. Any other words of wisdom? Anything else you wanted to get to for the benefit of those watching?
No, I think those resources are good. I think that's a great place to start. And I think that if you stay consistent, find your little niche, find what performs well. I mean, and you just continue. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, look at my page, see what performed well, copy it. Don't take all my before and afters and claim them as your own, but copy what I do and copy what other people do. What you're seeing on your For You page, do that. It's okay to, take some ideas from other people. I mean, that's what's performing well. That's what people are looking for. That's what's getting pushed out. So do something with that. And that's where I get a lot of my ideas, just scrolling on that For You page.
Yeah. And I'm in a group with a lot of marketers and an agency program. I don't have the source off the tip of my fingers right now, but there was a market research survey that recently came out that we were all discussing around, the vast majority of people on social media don't want to be sold. Um, they are very interested in being educated on the things that they want to know about. So again, if we take the focus of education first, Gary Vaynerchuk, anyone that follows him will kind of know too. I mean, he says that you should be shooting 20 minutes of content every single day, putting it out into the algorithm, and at the end of the day, that's how a lot of people are going to end up finding you, whether you realize it or not. And for many of us, and I'll be the first person to say too, I mean, I do pieces of content like this, and my team puts it out all over the internet, but I don't probably shoot a lot every week talking about things that I should be talking about that I'm discussing with practices and coaching clients each week. So it's also a reminder to me that I probably have to carve that out. So maybe my last question would be, I know you're busy, you've got all the patients to see, but what does your schedule look like? Like, do you actually have 20 minutes here and there? Like, are you carving it out, or are you just excellent at in the moment capturing it? Like, what
I
what should
don't
someone
know.
what should someone strive for?
I think I do a little of both. I consciously try to plan sometimes where I can shoot some content because I'm also running the business, shooting content for Patreon, seeing patients, working at helping at other practices. So I have a whole bunch going on. So I try my best to look at my week and say, okay, here's 10 minutes I have. Here's a patient that I know is going to let me record, things like that, so that I have content. And the other thing I was going to say in regards to if you're stuck, I always get stuck in these every once in a while of what the heck am I going to post? I have no ideas. I'm not feeling creative. Put yourself in the shoe of a consumer. When you're scrolling on the internet or you're looking something up on TikTok or you're thinking about a procedure that you want, what do you want to know? And then
Mhm.
just make that video. So it becomes really easy when you put yourself in the shoes of a consumer and what's going to stop you when you're scrolling.
That's great advice. Well, listen, Sarah, thanks so much for doing this. I do have to
Thank
run
you.
a hockey practice, so I did have to keep this just to an hour because my middle son's like right here, ready to go. But this was great. I'll have you back another time, and maybe we'll talk about sales consultations to treatment plans.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye.